empathy and perspective.
You don't
And I think these things are very often forgotten. Right? Leaders are so often so concerned about their status or their position in an organization, they actually forget their real job. And the real job of a leader is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in our charge.
You know,
and I don't think people...
that the day that you admit you can't do it, someone will be there and say, I got you. You can do this. That's what gives you the courage to do the difficult thing. It's not going off to an ashram by yourself somewhere for 4 weeks and coming back and finding the courage. It's not what happens. It's the relationships that we foster. It's the people around us who love us and care about us and believe in us. And when we have those relationships, we will find the courage to do the right thing. And when you act with courage, that in turn will inspire those in your organization to also act with courage. In other words, it's still an external thing. That's what inspiration is, right? I'm inspired to follow your example. But those relationships that we foster over the course of a lifetime will not only make us into the leaders we need to be and hope we can be, but they'll often save your life. They'll save you from depression, they'll save you from giving up, they'll save you from any matter of negative feelings about your own capabilities, your own future. When someone just says, I love you, and I will follow you no matter what.
Why do you, so I want to talk about that for a second. Why do you think that something so innate, so deeply ingrained in us as love is so, like just yesterday, I can't believe this is true, this is actually true, I'm not making this up. Just yesterday, this will mean something to you guys, I looked Ron Penna in his eyes and I said, I love you. And I said it like 100%, is my business partner, I said it 100% sincerely. It was just one of those moments where you want to connect and remember, but that's so weird, like I don't do that often. And it's so interesting that it becomes out of context,
Sure.
Maybe is the best way to say it, because like at home with my wife, it's so easy and I love to embody it and I love to feel it and it makes me feel awesome. But then I come into the office and there's something about the context that makes it weird.
Yes, two perspectives. One is, this is what vulnerability is, right? Being vulnerable doesn't mean crying. Being vulnerable means willing to admit you made a mistake. Being vulnerable is the willingness to say, I need help. Being vulnerable is the willingness to express the feelings you have towards someone without fear of what other people may think of you by making that expression. And most people, especially if they don't have a trusting environment or a strong corporate culture, most people don't want to feel vulnerable. It's dangerous to feel vulnerable. If you admit you made a mistake or you don't know what you're doing, you've been promoted into a job that you have no clue or no business being in that job, lying, hiding, and faking is a much better option, right? But for the fact that it's more stressful and ultimately the results will falter, right? It's counterintuitive. But that's what a strong environment means. It means I can be vulnerable. So the fact that you can say that out loud means that there's a loving, trusting culture here that is okay with you being vulnerable. Nobody's thinking, oh my God, this company's going downhill. This guy's nuts. He's blubbering all over the place. That's not what people are thinking. I mean, some people are probably thinking it, but generally that's not what people are thinking. If anything, people are going cool, and that then inspires them to feel that they can also express vulnerability, like admit a mistake, like say they screwed up, like say they need help, but say they want to offer help to someone and not fear that either. So that's one perspective. The other reason why stuff that I talk about or that you're talking about now is so often ignored is just because it's hard to measure. How do you measure leadership? How do you measure?
That's going to be one of my questions.
How do you measure trust? They lack good metrics. It's very easy to measure revenues and profits and market share. So let's focus on those things because I can like pull a lever here and see what happens over there.
Right.
But in terms of like trust, I'll pull a lever here and I won't see anything for 6 months. So it's not that I don't know that it exists. Everybody talks about the importance of culture, yet nobody seems to be focused on building it. I've never met a CEO in my life who doesn't think people are important. And yet every day they're making decisions that prioritize a number over a person that literally don't care about people. They make decisions that literally brush people aside because it's hard to measure. In an ultra-speedy, algorithmic world that we live in, what gets measured gets done. These things are measurable, just not in the short term.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because when you talk about making this a movement, which is really exciting to me, that there's this crusader out there who is incredibly effective at communicating this stuff and getting people excited about it, and actually taking things from the ephemeral and making it very tangible. Do you think that's a question you're going to have to answer at some point? Like, to show people how we make
Metrics are fine. The metrics are fine. They're just not in the short term, and they're just not fixed in time.
What are they?
So, for example, do you love your wife?
Yes.
Right? Prove it. Like, what's the metric? Give me the number that helps me know, right? Because when you met her, you didn't love her, right? Now you love her, right? Tell me the day the love happened. It's an impossible question, right? But it's not that it didn't. So clearly there's no results, how to measure, it does not reflect. Or, if you fundamentally believe that this is the right course of action and you stick with it, like in a relationship, I bought her flowers and I wished her happy birthday,
So
and she
I'm
doesn't love me.
embarrassed
Clearly I'll give up. You know, that's not what happens.
that I
If
have a
you
career.
believe there's something there, you commit
I
yourself
talk
to
about
that
things
act of
like
service.
trust.
You commit yourself to the regime, the exercise. You can screw it up. You can eat chocolate cake one day. You can skip a day or two. You know, it allows for that. But if you stick with it consistently, I'm not exactly sure what day, but I know you'll start getting into shape. I know it. And the same with the relationship. It's not about the events. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency, right? You go to the dentist twice a year, your teeth will fall out. You have to brush your teeth every day for 2 minutes. What does brushing your teeth twice a day for 2 minutes do? Nothing. Unless you do it every day, twice a day for 2 minutes, right? It's the consistency. Going to the gym for 9 hours does not get you into shape. Working out every day for 20 minutes gets you into shape. So the problem is we treat leadership with intensity. We have a 2-day offsite, we invite a bunch of speakers, we give everybody a certificate, you're a leader, right? Those things are like going to the dentist. They're very important. They're good for reminding us or getting us back on track, learning new lessons. But it's the daily practice of all the monotonous, little, boring things like brushing your teeth that matter the most. She didn't fall in love with you because you remembered her birthday and bought her flowers on Valentine's Day. She fell in love with you because when you woke up in the morning, you said good morning to her before you checked your phone. She fell in love with you because when you went to the fridge to get yourself a drink, you got her one without even asking. She fell in love with you because when you had an amazing day at work and she came home and she had a terrible day at work, you didn't say, yeah, but let me tell you about my day. You sat and listened to her awful day and you didn't say a thing about your amazing day. This is why she fell in love with you. I can't tell you exactly what day, and it was no particular thing you did. It was the accumulation of all of those little things that she woke up one day and as if she pressed a button, she goes, I love him, right? Leadership is exactly the same. There's no event. There's no thing I can tell you you have to do that your people will trust you. It just doesn't work that way. It's an accumulation of lots and lots of little things that anyone by themselves is innocuous and useless. Literally, pointless by themselves. People will look at little things that are good leadership practices and say, that won't work, and you're absolutely right. But if you do it consistently, and you do it in combination with lots of other little things, like saying good morning to someone, that looking in the eye. In business, we have colleagues and colleagues. In the military, they have brothers and sisters. That's how they think of each other, right? If you really have a strong corporate culture, the people will think of each other like brothers and sisters. I mean, it's like a family, right? No. Brothers and sisters. Deep love. Fight, but the love doesn't go away, right? Bicker, the love doesn't go away. And I'll fight with my sister, but if you threaten my sister, you're going to have to deal with me. Right? We'll fight internally, we'll bicker with each other, but nobody's going to hurt each other, and if anything from the outside shows up, you're looking at a unified front. Brothers and sisters. Now, how do you create brothers and sisters out of strangers? Common beliefs, common values, parents, in other words, executives who care about their children's success, who care to raise their children, teach them skills, discipline them when necessary, help them build their self-confidence so that they can go on and achieve something more than you could have ever imagined achieving for yourself. That's leadership, an absolute love and devotion for the people who've committed their lives to this enterprise.
That's such a brilliant reframe. It's so simple and so beautiful,
And unbelievably hard work.
it is and it isn't. Here's why it is. You said it. It's hard to measure, right? It's hard for me to show.
It's hard to measure in the short term. It's very easy to measure in the long term. Over the long term, the traditional metrics will go up. All your revenues, profits, market share, the traditional metrics will go up, and more importantly, they'll go up more stably, right? You will be able to weather hard times better because the people will come together, they won't abandon ship, right? Over the long term, the traditional metrics are just fine. But also over the long term, your churn will go down, right? You won't be going through employees as much, right? Over the long term, you'll find that loyalty is much higher, that people will turn down better paying jobs, right? Over the long term, all the traditional metrics are just fine, and then some. It's only the short term that it's hard to measure.
I'm going to say, though, there's something in between those two, in the middle, to know, because with working out, so to use your analogy, if you had to go to the gym for 6 months before you saw any sign of change, no one would do it, right? And there are so many variables in working out. The number one thing is to know who to listen to. The number one thing is to know what to look for, right? So if you don't experience muscle fatigue, you're probably doing something different. That's immediate, right? I know that the next day. If you experience muscle fatigue and don't notice any change within a few weeks, you're probably not eating right. So there really are things that you can look at because you're doing the damage to the muscle, but you're not giving your body the nutrients that you need to actually build.
Well, that's still true.
So I'm sitting here thinking, can it really be as simple as, like, I have a growing belief that part of what you could write down as a leader's job is to connect. Now, how do we connect? You've given some very simple examples, and they're all incredibly real. Asking somebody how their day is and actually waiting to hear the answer and caring about what the answer is. Time spent together, right? I couldn't have a very effective relationship with my wife if there actually isn't time together. And one of the things that I have personally struggled with is, as the organization has grown, just time with any individual becomes more and more difficult. And so then you start focusing on, okay, wait, it's just about creating the environment. But as you lose touch with the real sense of, like, I know this person and I can see when they're having a bad day, and really leveraging, like, what we have as humans, and this is why your teachings are so powerful, is you wrap it in the truth of the human experience. You wrap it in how humans really connect, like looking at each other, sensing that, like, hey, this is either hitting or it's not, like, all of that stuff is super, super real. And as an organization, to be able to find ways in that middle ground where it's like, I'm pretty sure this is working, and I really believe in it at a macro level. But I just want to know, because there's so many paths, right? And you could nudge sort of one way or the other to create something that, and maybe it's as simple as, here's what I'm using this right now. The amount of laughter I hear in the office. Maybe that's dumb, I don't know. But I'm really doing it, and I really think all day, like, how much laughter have I heard today? And I feel like when everyone is making, really taking an effort to connect with each other, to provide empathy and all that, there's a lowering of people's defenses, and just a sort of natural outpouring of that is joking around. And so you hear this laughter bubble, and when things get really tense and stressful, I literally feel like you could have a decibel meter and just feel it coming down.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a human thing. So just as you know how your body feels after a good workout, and you know how your body feels after a big greasy meal, you know that one is good for you and one is not, despite what it may taste like. And that's the problem with short-term gains, right? They feel really good in the short term. So we're highly, highly, highly trained social animals. We're highly adapted social animals. We can feel social awkwardness, and we can feel when things are going well. You can sense it. You say you have this sense of laughter, around the office. Like, we don't walk around with blinders. We're like I said, we're made to do this. That's why we can assess